All right, so welcome to the next part of color and brushes. So we are going to be taking a little bit deeper look into graphic styles for this portion. So I'm just going to go ahead and close out some of my windows, even if I'm just going to open them right back up again. I'll go ahead and leave graphic styles because that's what we're looking at. So a couple of things. Let's see. First of all, let me just draw a couple of shapes here. I'm just going to go ahead and use my star tool. So it doesn't have the shape that I necessarily want. There we go. So I'll get that in a little bit. That way. Okay. All right. And then I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna duplicate this a couple of times. So in the graphic style panel, the way that your graphic style applies to an object kind of changes depending on the size of it. And so that can be a little bit tricky. It's a little bit hard for Illustrator to just determine, like, depending on the size of the object, how you want the graphic style to apply. So let me just demonstrate by scale. So let's see, I'm going to, well, we kind of saw it in the star pattern. Like, I applied this graphic style to one of the stars, and you can see, like, because the star is so small, those strokes ended up being fairly large, and so was the pattern. And so you just see this kind of random dot, and it doesn't really look very good. So I'm going to back out. So when you apply a graphic style to something, size definitely needs to be taken into consideration. So here's the graphic style, and it looks much more closer to the first one. If I come in here and I scale this, you're going to see that the strokes stay the same width, and the pattern, it does actually get smaller and scale with it. But let's say I want to scale this and not have any of that affected. What I can do is if I come in to and grab my transform panel. So let's see. Maybe I can just bring up here. I can just bring up, so it's under Windows, under transform here. And what I can do is scale the strokes and the effects with the star. So now if I scale it down, you see the strokes are staying the same size and the appearance is not changing. So that is how you can change things and have the strokes stay the same, and also whatever effects, if you have like a drop shadow on something or whatever the case is. So there's also a lot of, now you know how to make a graphic style, but there's also a lot of really cool just default ones here. I'm going to choose neon because I love neon. No, actually, I take that back. Here, let's pull up a couple of menus. I'm going to do neon and 3D effects, and then, oh, is this not going to open multiple? I guess not. Neon, it opens it in different tabs if you pull from the graphic style. And then let's say buttons and rollovers. So a lot of different looking stuff in there. You can download graphic styles out in the world just like you can download brushes and patterns. So, you know, there's some nice default ones in here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and drag it on there. There I've got my 3D star. And, you know, these can all be created by you as well by applying different types of effects and things like that. So just so you know, these graphic styles are here. Here's all the neon sign kind of default looking things. So a lot of this is created with different effects. So I'm going to come over here to this last star, and you know, apply some stars, play around with different graphic styles, you know, whatever you want to do. Um, and so I'm just going to set this to be really basic. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my properties panel and just have the fill be, let's say, a orange, and the stroke blue, a nice contrasting color to that. So yeah, here are my properties. So what I can do is, if I pull up my appearance panel, I can start really adding some things to this particular star. So you can see here that there's an extrude and bevel capability in 3D. So if you want to make something look 3D, you have your different options here. You can spin it around. There's some really cool capabilities in here. I'm just gonna do that, and then I'm gonna take the extrude. Oh, can I go to, oh, there we go. I'm gonna take the extrude depth down to more like maybe 12, something like that. I can also control the object from here, which is really nice and cool. So I'm gonna do that. And you know, you have a lot of, I'm going to go ahead and have a cap on it so that it's fill. The surface, you just have a couple of options down here. There's more options here that you can play around with, but I'm going to just go ahead and hit OK on that. All right. So another effect that I could look at is maybe the bulge effect. So I can warp the star around a little bit and add some of this, you know, just play around with how this star is behaving. It looks a little bit more like a character. Maybe I can just add some eyes to it or something. I don't know. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I can add a drop shadow, which is a great way to give more dimensionality to it. This drop shadow is pretty intense, so whoops. I'm going to bring that in a bit here and bring that opacity down quite a bit so that it's a little bit more subtle. Okay. All right. You know, so a lot of these, here you can see that there's an Illustrator effect gallery and then the Photoshop too. So there's a lot of like different things that you might be used to from Photoshop in here. I use the texture grain quite a bit. So when I choose that, I get this kind of dialog box that pops up, and this gives me a preview of what it's going to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And then I get this weird kind of pixelated sort of star look, which can be really cool depending on what it is you're trying to do. So now I can come in and let's say I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this graphic style to apply to my squirrel and kind of see how that looks. It might make my squirrel look really weird, but that's okay. So I'm going to go to graphic styles. Now you can see here that they have all the ones that I've been choosing. No, I don't want to do that. I'll just do thumbnail. I always wish I could make these like really, really big. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take this graphic style and add it to the palette here. And then one thing I need to do with the squirrel is I need to make the tail a closed path. It's just a closed shape. It's just open right now. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab my direct selection tool. I'm going to select the tail. And if I grab my pen tool, I should be able just to, let's see if it's going to let me add. Yeah, I should be able to just click on that anchor and close that path up just like that. And so it looks like the fox needs its tail closed up as well. All right, so now I'm going to come in here And I'm going to apply the graphic style individually. So I'm just going to come in with my direct selection. And I'm going to take that graphic style and drag and drop it. Is it going to allow me to add it? No, maybe it has to be, maybe I have to do direct selection tool back to regular selection tool and drag and drop it. There we go. Oh, wow. Look at what it does to that tail. So it's applying all the transformations, right? The warping. I'm going to drag and drop this onto the squirrel's body. It's a bit of an extreme graphic style, so it's probably taking a minute to, let's see. Oh no, I need to go back in and direct select the squirrel body, go back to my regular selection tool. Now you can always go in and select those directly from your layers panel as well. So let's see, where's Mr. Squirrel? Mr. Squirrel's down here. So it looks like the body is in a group, which is maybe why it's not letting me just apply. Oh, this is a clipping path. I don't know if it's gonna let me apply that style. Here, let me just see. Will it let me just do a green fill? It will. So it should, if I just have this selected, apply the graphic style. Maybe that graphic style is too intense. All right. Well, you know what? Let's yeah, that graphic style might be too intense. It's got a lot going on. It's a cool tail though. So let's go ahead and create some graphic styles that are maybe more simple, because what I'm going to actually have you do in the end of this is color this squirrel and fox and bird in different styles that you create. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my rectangle tool and I'm just going to create a little palette. And this is kind of how I create a palette if I'm going to use a bunch of different graphic styles to fill in color for artwork. And then I think what I need to do is get a, I need to get some swatches in here that make a little bit more sense for these little animals. So I'm gonna go to my libraries panel here and I'm gonna go out to my regular, I just have a bunch of colors and I'm just gonna pick some more animal friendly type of colors. So this one looks good. I'm gonna add that one and then maybe, let's see, we have a bird, so maybe like a blues and red one. Oh, that one's really intense. Maybe this one right here. Okay. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is I think I'm going to take this first one here and I'm gonna sort of transform this into something that I can use for the squirrel. I'm going to go to the squirrel's tail. I'm going to direct select the tail here and then go back to my selection tool and I'm going to relieve. Let's see, if I go to my appearance, I should be able to clear that graphic style off of there. Okay. And I'll just give it a black stroke real quick so I can see it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create something for the squirrel. So I'm going to use my appearance panel to do that. And I'm going to say that I'm going to have a stroke with my new colors here of maybe this dark brown. And the fill can be this lighter brown. And then I'm going to go ahead and add another fill. And this one is going to be a gradient. And sorry, I just have windows all over the place. This is just kind of how I work in tutorial. I just want to make sure you can see everything. So if I go ahead and pull up my my gradient editor here, I've got that. I'm going to go ahead and make it circular. Now there's a way, let's see, how do I get that little menu to pop up? There's a way that you can directly edit the gradient on the object you're working on, and that always seems to pop up for me when I don't need it. And I would like to show that to you right now, but I'm not sure. All right, well, anyways, so I'm gonna have this kind of go out and be radial. I need this to be transparent. So on the white side, I'm gonna go ahead and take the opacity down to 0. And then I'm gonna take this sort of more orangish color. You know, I take it back. I think that I'm going to just have it be a gradient that sits like so. This needs to be a little bit darker though. So I'm going to go ahead and go from into my color adjustment palette here. I think I'm going to make that just a little bit more orange. So it's making it a little bit more orange here. And then I'm going to adjust that a little bit more. It's a little bit too subtle of a gradient, isn't it? Maybe if I go back to my swatches and just make it brown. Yeah, that looks okay, even with the stroke brown. Okay. All right, so then what I want to do is on this particular fill, with that selected, I want to add a texture grain to it. So I'm just going to zoom in here. Now it's a little bit hard to see exactly what it's going to do, but I usually change this grain to something more like, what is it that I usually use? I think it's spatter. Nope. Film grain. Maybe that's what it is. And then you can adjust how the grain's looking here. The intensity of it, these types of things. So I'm going to have this be a little lower in the grain count, maybe somewhere like right there. And this is just going to add a little bit of texture to that gradient, which I think is going to make it look more interesting. So I'm going to hit OK. And then you can kind of see how this is looking. I'm not sure that, well, maybe it does need a stroke, but I'm going to change the profile to something that moves around a little bit more. There we go. All right, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to go ahead and add that to the graphic styles. And then if I come over here to my squirrel friend, I'm going to go ahead and select the parts of the squirrel. So the body and the tail. Oh, I just selected everything. Let's see. I'm not really sure why this might be in a group from before, so I'm going to get this body out of a group. It doesn't need to be in a group. And the eye seems to be grouped. So I am going to go ahead and go to the appearance. Let's see. It looks like I applied that graphic style to part of the eye. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and ungroup the eye. That doesn't need to be in a group either. All right. I'm going to ungroup that body. Nope, it's already ungrouped. Okay. So I'm going to choose the body of the squirrel. I'm going to go ahead and apply that graphic style that I created to it. There we go. It seems to have just applied the gradient though. So what happened? It seems like, so the graphic style applied just fine there. So I'm not sure what's going on with Mr. Squirrel. There's something with the type of path that this is. I'm going to just expand the appearance of it. I'm not really sure. I don't know why that's behaving differently. So I have the squirrel in a total group, and I am actually going to just, let's see here. I'm going to ungroup the squirrel. So, sometimes it's nice to just ungroup things and be able to work with them. Oh, there's 2 squirrel profiles. Sorry, I borrowed the squirrel from another, from a stock vector artwork. So it's kind of funny in terms of, if I just shut the visibility off. Okay, so this top part of the squirrel, I don't think I need. And then all of these should be single. They're not grouped at the moment. Now, for organizational purposes, I'm going to go ahead and group them again. But let's see if I can apply this graphic style without any problems. There we go. So I don't know what was up with the squirrel. But this is good to run into this and have you reorganize it, because you will run into things like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just add this graphic style to all the parts of my squirrel. And see, like, having that gradient built in, it creates a sense of dimensionality to the squirrel, because that gradient's working in all the same ways in every part. And then for this, I'm going to go to, I have this, well, the buttons don't look very good. Let's see here. If I just choose this like weird graphic style default, it's kind of this shiny look to the eye. And I'll add that to the nose as well, just because I'm trying not to make this video too long. All right, so yeah, what I want you to do for this section is go ahead and create just some simple graphic styles. It could just be a fill with a gradient on it, and apply that to the squirrel. You're gonna have to ungroup the squirrel, and there's a couple weird objects in there, but just play around with it. And if it's not perfect, it's totally fine. All right. So in the next video, we are going to work with gradients a little bit more, and I'm going to show you how to use a little bit more advanced gradient tool, and then I'm going to show you how to use the gradient mesh tool. So that is what we are going to do in the next video. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and save your project, and I'll see you then. Okay, bye.